Ardenwield is a zone we already know. This is the one zone that we absolutely know was created by the Winter Queen. Now, every single one of the other zones within the Shadowlands has a similar hint applied to them that these zones were created, they're not natural. Now, we might argue, but dude, everything in the universe was created, but here's where this is important. These zones were not created by the first ones. These zones were created by the eternal ones. So literally a step down from the first ones. In other words, if I say that something like Ardenwield isn't natural, I'm not talking about it necessarily being a bad thing. I'm just saying it was never meant to exist, right? It was never meant to exist in the universe. So Ardenwield very specifically was designed and developed by the Winter Queen. The Winter Queen, according at least to indications from the lore, did not even wish for Ardenwield to become a realm that houses souls. She was simply designing a realm for herself. She was just building something beautiful. It was the Arbiter that decided to place souls inside Ardenwield, and we now know, thanks to the Afterlife cinematic and also thanks to playing through Ardenwield for some time, Ardenwield seems to be so Ballular in a very recent video made a remark. Actually, I think the video came out tonight, but he made a remark that druids and hunters canonically would make their way to Ardenwield, and I actually disagree with him. Not saying that druids and hunters wouldn't make their way to Ardenwield, more that I don't think druids and hunters would, I don't think Ardenwield was designed for mere mortals. Looking at Ardenwield and looking at all the creatures that exist within Ardenwield, almost all of those creatures are very much gods or demigods, if you will. These are creatures of nature. This is the whole point of them. Now, Ardenwield might recruit mere mortals to serve these gods, but I don't think Ardenwield would have a need for every single druid and hunter that ever dies in the world, right? Or in the Great Beyond. Because Ardenwield, at least based on playing through it multiple times now, seems to be very much focused on creating lower and wild gods. We also know, thanks to the campaign story, that this is where Loa is born. So it's not just the wild gods that's born there, but Loa themselves find their origins from within Ardenwield. And also, just spoiler alert for anyone that doesn't want these spoilers, I do apologize, but Vol'jin is being prepared as a Loa as well. This is in Ardenwield, where Vol'jin is being prepared as one of the Loa. So, yeah, that's maybe a little bit of spoiler that a lot of you didn't want, but let's talk about Ardenwield, because there's something rather interesting about Ardenwield. There's something rather significant about Ardenwield. Very interesting place. We've seen in the Afterlife story that, you know, this is where the wild gods are reborn, this is where the Loa are reborn. It might even have a much deeper connection to the Emerald Dream. This is thanks to the war preface that we found, where they argue, the Nathrezim argue, that there is a link between the Emerald Dream, or life rather, and Ardenwield that may be exploited. This is something that they could exploit as a weak spot potentially. Now, we also know, and this is again something that Ballular highlighted in his video, we know that at the end of Legion, or at least at the end of the Emerald Nightmare raid, all of these creatures that have died and that we've seen die and that we've killed, Ursol, Ysera, all of these creatures, their spirits were inside the Emerald Dream. So this is where I go one step further in my speculation and I say, I don't think nature spirits make their way to the Arbiter at all. I think that's the weakness that the Nathrezim identified. Nature spirits are inherently tied to the Emerald Dream, and this is across all of the Great Beyond. So no matter where in the Great Beyond you die, you are the Emerald, or the Dream, Azeroth's Dream, as far as I'm concerned, connects and blankets the whole of the Great Beyond. Any creatures that die that is part of nature, that is champions of life, they instantly enter into the Emerald Dream, where their souls are prepared, and then their souls are sent to Ardenwield, so they bypass the entirety of the Arbiter. The Arbiter is completely bypassed in this process. This is to ensure that creatures of life do not go to waste, but I believe that it goes even deeper than that. As you play through the Ardenwield quest line, you get to the final quest that takes you to the heart of the forest. Here is the first time that you actually interact with the Winter Queen. The Winter Queen tells you that the heart of the forest was instrumental in the banishing of Zuval, of the jailer. And should the heart of the forest fall, the jailer will be free to do whatever he wants. So we can extrapolate at least that while all of the other covenants are important, it really is Ardenwield that holds the jailer at bay. If Ardenwield falls, the jailer is free. This the Winter Queen pretty much establishes. Now, Alex came up with a theory, and he was asking me about the different world trees and how the different world trees may actually interact as almost connections. And this is where my speculation started tingling. Remember, we've been asking this question for a long time. Why Teldrassil? Why did Sylvanas choose to destroy Teldrassil? Now, in previous speculations, I've argued this was a sort of, gunshot to signal to Elune, I'm coming for you. This was a sort of in-your-face gunshot to say, you know what, fuck you, I'm coming. But what if it had nothing to do with that? What if the reason Teldrassil had to be targeted, it was the last anchor? So what do I think the world tree served as? If Ardenwield truly is as important as it is, and just to put this into perspective for you, everyone in the Shadowlands states this. If Zuval, the jailer, escapes the maw, his first order of business will be to slay the Winter Queen. He hates her, by the way. He absolutely despises the Winter Queen. He'll kill her. His next order of business will be to kill the Arbiter. According to the denizens of Erebos, the servants of the Arbiter, should the Arbiter fall, it's the end of everything the first one's made. So the Arbiter, to some extent, and I've not been able to figure out what exactly, but the Arbiter to some extent holds... She's some kind of link between everything ever created. If she falls, it's almost like a house of cards. If she falls, the entire house of cards falls with her. So the Arbiter seems to hold everything together. Now, over the course of the history of World of Warcraft, every single one of the world trees that was established were destroyed at one point or another. Nordrassil, for example, was destroyed by Sargeras' forces, by Archimonde, trying to siphon the power out of the tree. And the Wisps, ultimately to defeat Archimonde, had to destroy the tree. Now, obviously Nordrassil has started growing again, but I don't believe that that matters anymore. I believe that once it's been damaged enough, it severs the link to Ardenwield. So what is these trees? Why did Sylvanas focus on Teldrassil specifically? The trees is a safety net. And to me, this makes 100% sense, because if you look at, for example, the world trees as they stand, right? If you look at how the world trees are built, it almost, you get this idea that they're not entirely finished. I don't know if you guys have seen this before, but you look at the world trees and it's a stump that goes up, and then it's almost as if there's no top of the stump, right? There's obviously things happening in it, and these world trees are massive, so they have giant cities inside of them, but they are almost unfinished. And I showed you guys the trees that you see in Ardenwield. These giant, majestic trees with these crazy leaves that go out and hum with anima. Now, I haven't done an exact count because it's too early. Blizzard, we still need more time to see exactly how many groves the original Ardenwield had, because there is an actual part, an entire part of Ardenwield that's just fallen off thanks to the drought. So I don't know exactly yet how many original areas or covens the Ardenwield Covenant had, but in my opinion, the World Trees of Azeroth was built as a sort of failsafe. They knew that should the heart of the forest fall, and it will fall without anima. Believe me, the Winter Queen tells us this. This is why she sends us to Sire Denathrius, because the Vainthir know how to harvest anima. They desperately need anima for the heart of the forest. If the heart of the forest falls, the jailer is free and all life comes to an end. But they thought of this beforehand. They knew that something like this could happen. And so they set up another system. The system was simple. 5 world trees born on the greatest titan, or if I can say this, I don't think Azeroth is actually a titan, not in the way that the titans think of titans, but we'll not get into that just yet. I'm still working on that theory a little bit. But on this giant titan, they build 5 world trees. We know that these world trees, their roots go deep. Like, seriously deep. Their roots tap into the very anima of Azeroth. And should Ardenwield require it, if Ardenwield truly needs anima, it can siphon it from Azeroth. So it can literally pull that anima out of Azeroth into Ardenwield to keep the jailer from escaping. This is why Sylvanas focused Teldrassil. It was the final connection to Ardenwield. It was the final thing that allowed Ardenwield to keep itself almost strong. This might also be why we see this delay. Remember, in Afterlives Ardenwield, we kind of had a very weird moment, if you guys remember correctly. We had this weird moment where we've been told that Ysera was one of the last to enter into Ardenwield, into the Shadowlands before the Machine of Death broke. We saw Ursoc later also enter into the Shadowlands. This is why I started this theory with saying I don't think creatures of nature enter into the Shadowlands through the Arbiter. Because based on Blizzard's own lore, Ursoc would have died way too late to actually make his way into the Shadowlands. Right? There's a connection between the Emerald Dream and between Ardenwield. And the destruction of Teldrassil, I believe, severs that connection. It ensures that that connection cannot be used to funnel power into Ardenwield. This is why, even after Ursoc arrived, we still had to wait to see the effects of the drought so long. And if you go to the Shadowlands right now, and you look at some of the zones, Bastion is seriously struggling right now. Revendreth is struggling, but this is mostly because of Sire Denathrius. Maldraxxus is suffering. Ardenwield has areas that's very, very much suffering, but some of their areas is not suffering. Some of the areas still has some anima left, which suggests to me that their drought started a little bit after the rest of the Shadowlands. They could still fall back on this failsafe. They could still have this failsafe of funneling power directly from Azeroth into the, shall we say, into Ardenwield and into the heart of the forest. Only now are they starting to lose anima because they can no longer funnel it. Now, there's still something interesting about the Winter Queen, which I've not yet been able to place. There's definitely something weird about the Winter Queen. The whole system of the Shadowlands, and this is something that we'll do in the next theory, I believe the Shadowlands is it's completely corrupted around what it was meant to be. What it was supposed to be and what it has become is a complete corruption of what it used to be, or corruption of what the first ones intended it to be. The Winter Queen the best word I have for who the Winter Queen is to me is an enigma, because I don't know if she's evil. I do know that what she does is slightly sinister, right? The fact that they use anima, and please don't think of anima. It's nice that Blizzard gave anima a different name, but if we really wanted to be factual, anima is our souls. It's literally the souls of the living that is being used to power this great system, this great engine of rebirth within the Shadowlands that's called Ardenwield. So let's make no mistake here, we have been turned into slaves of these Eternal Ones to do their bidding. To allow them to do their jobs, they use us as battery packs. And these battery packs fuel their jobs. In my opinion, that's not freedom. That's not what I think it should be. That's not how I think it should be. And I have these flashbacks to what little I know of the Warhammer universe. And forgive me for anyone that is very much into Warhammer at this point. I'm only now getting into it. But what I do know, the thing that actually gripped me about the Warhammer lore is the god of the humans. He is said to be, and if I'm mistaken on exactly everything, I do apologize, I'm still only getting into it, but he is said to be a dark god that constantly requires the souls of mortals in order to stay alive. It's a slow decaying god. So this god is slowly dying over time. And the reason humans don't live forever, the reason humans aren't immortal, is because their souls are used to fuel this decaying god, right? It is meant to fuel this decaying god so that he can stay alive, otherwise without the souls he would truly die. It gives me that kind of sense. I get the same kind of feeling from this. When I look at the Shadowlands, I have this, and I realize to everyone that's a nerd for 40k lore, I might have just butchered it, because there's obviously a lot more nuance that goes into it. Not nuisance, I'm a nuisance for not going into the nuance of this, but that was just one of the things that really gripped me about the 40k lore, is that story of it. And that's the sense that I get with Ardenwield. That's the sense that I get with the Shadowlands. It's the same kind of thing. It's the same idea. We cannot live forever because our souls is instrumental in their power struggles. And I need you to remember this, because in the next theory, we're actually going to be using a lot of this to maybe describe why the jailer was banished. Because I think I know. But we'll talk about that in a bit. Anyways, now I want to hear from you. What do you think of this theory? Yes, no, maybe? Come on, chat. Give me your best.